Looking back on the early days of TV news, it really was like radio with pictures.
For a few minutes at noon and at night, a reporter would read the news of the day. The pictures were often clips from movie newsreels or even still photos from newspapers.
But by the mid-1950s, all that changed when a big story blew into town. It started out as just another rainy day in the summer of 1954. But WBZ's Don Kent knew what was coming.
That morning I said very, very definitely that this storm center looked to me like it was coming closer in over land than the government forecast indicated. So I remember clearly that morning saying that by noon today we're going to have hurricane conditions on a line east, over and east of a line from Providence to Boston, meaning southeastern New England would have lots of destruction.
Jack Chase was doing the noon news when Hurricane Carol hit full force.
We knew the hurricane was coming and that it was headed for Boston. So I said, you know, this is a risky situation. I said, can we stick a camera out the back door and just have it on the tower? Because it was swaying. This giant steel mass was just swaying 12, 15 feet either way. I said, anytime the tower sways, just go to that live, and I'll see it on the monitor, and I'll just describe what happened. That was the last anybody saw of our tower, because I finished the newscast, which was 10 minutes long, went out to the hall to get a drink of water before filing my news, and the tower crashed in on the top of the building. Water came cascading down the stairways.
The WBZ tower was in ruins, like much of the rest of New England. Using a temporary small tower, WBZ-TV was back on the air in time to report on the damage. We covered it all, from Hurricanes Carol and Edna to the whirlwind career of a young senator on his way up. Cameramen in 5 states, or stringers as they were called, risked life and limb to bring the story in first. January 1955, another first for WBZ-TV News. Inmates at Charlestown Prison try to escape, then hold their guards hostage for 84 hours. The only reporter to get the inside story was WBZ-TV's Jack Chase. The world was getting smaller. WBZ-TV news teams were covering stories around the globe. Some great leaders of the time came to visit us. In 1952, soon-to-be President Eisenhower just finished speaking from our studio when a clock fell on his head, but he gave our crew a presidential pardon. In '59, we got a look at another leader as WBZ-TV joined forces with NBC for a special broadcast from Soldiers Field Stadium. It was the first time most of us had seen the guest of honor. The 60s. Once again, the world was watching New England. The Boston Strangler gripped the attention of the nation. Following the Strangler's rise and fall was a cub reporter named John Henning.
He seemed to be just like a guy who was living next door to you, but I guess psychologically he was just a tinderbox whose sexual appetites were crazy. It was a great story because it gripped the area. You wanted to be on the story that took the attention of the whole city. And it wasn't just a Boston story, it became a national story.
A new generation was beginning to make its presence known. That young senator from Brookline, who we'd watched for so long, became president.
It is a great pleasure to come back to a city where my accent is considered normal. And where they pronounce the words the way they are spelled.
Then the news turned bad, very bad. We had grown up with him. We banded together as a family to share our grief. These were times of disillusionment and despair. We were at war again. New England boys were fighting 12,000 miles from home. WBZ-TV followed 2 Massachusetts soldiers and brought home this documentary narrated by reporter Gene Pell.
The world of Robert Jones is the flight deck of the Midway, whipped by gale force winds, filled with flying spray and screaming jet engines. The Midway is docked in California, and Robert Jones will be home for Christmas. Joseph Drew will not. His 13 months end in May, and he will spend Christmas here on the sand dunes and rugged mountains around Da Nang. If he's lucky, he'll spend Christmas Day here in his battalion's base camp with the rude comforts of a tent, a cot, and hot food. If he isn't,
PFC Joseph Drew was killed a few days before this documentary went on the air. It was dedicated to his memory.